The ruckus all started with a sugar importation order and ended with Vic Rodriguez resigning as executive secretary. But wait, there's more. Rodriguez said he was appointed presidential chief of staff, only for his successor, former Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin, to say that no such administrative order creating such a position exists. And then two other shock announcements: the resignations of Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles and Commission on Audit Chairman Jose Calida, plus a lot of action too on the foreign policy front. And it isn't even the 100th day in office of President Marcos. What's going on? Quite a lot, it seems, or as some say, daming ganap. Good evening, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. With us here in the studio is our Malacañang correspondent Rex Remigio, who also did cover the BBM campaign during the last election, and via Zoom, political analyst Antonio Tonton Contreras. Good evening to you, Tonton. Thank you very much for being with us. And also later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Renato de Castro and Ed Tayao. All right, Tonton, let's begin with you, and Rex is here also to talk about that. Let's talk first about Vic Rodriguez. So, you know, unang lumalabas yung mga kwento nung nag-sugar import, sugar order number 4 na nga, yung kaguluhan na yan. And then, ang ending nito, resignation ni Vic Rodriguez. But what was going on? No? What was the problem with Vic Rodriguez?
Well, actually, yung sugar fiasco is actually, I think, the one that pushed for whatever, the last straw, whatever. But I think sa simula pa lang nun, Pia, nagsimula na siya doon sa may mga appointments, right?
Yeah. Appointments at sa kampanya din, ano?
Ay mga malapit sa kanya, pero questionable yung appointments. And then nagkaroon ng yung sugar fiasco. Apparently, I think Vic Rodriguez did a lot of things that displeased not necessarily the president, but displeased many sectors, many groups. And I think the president tried to save him. You know, there was an attempt to sort of save him in a sense that he came out saying that he's resigning from the position of ES, but he will be appointed as chief of staff, and he even referred to a numbered order, number 1, which we now know is non-existent according to his successor, Lucas Bersamin. So there's so many signals here, you know, that are confusing, but at the same time, they tell you that there's some kind of a danger. Kasi dalawang version yan, Pia. It's either that it's because Vic Rodriguez came out saying na i-appoint siya na chief of staff. Tapos lumabas na hindi siya i-appointed chief of staff, lumalabas na wala namang posisyon na gano'n. So meron nagsisinungaling sa kanila. Right?
Somebody is lying and someone is telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Or someone is trying to, or someone is trying to change the narrative.
Can you quantify, qualify, and specify when you say that he displeased quite a number of people? Who exactly are you referring to? Well, of course, doon lang sa sugar issue. I think yung sugar lobby, iba-ibang klase yan. Ang sugar industry natin nakaka-complicated, maraming players dyan. Yung sa issue tungkol sa port, yung in-appoint niya doon, I heard Philippine
that, I know that may
Authority.
nag-raffle din siya ng mga powerful people doon. So, you know, I think there's so many, and of course from the very start, many people have already been skeptical of Vic Rodriguez because they see Vic Rodriguez as not of the quality that would become an ES. May ganong klase ng mga ano na sa simula pa lang, meron ng prejudice laban sa kanya. So andun na yung bias. So nagpatong-patong yun. And then of course lumalabas na yung mga hindi magagandang desisyon, yung mga nadidisplease yung mga iba't ibang mga grupo. And I think also have to understand that major player din dito syempre yung family ng president. Paano ba niya trinato, for example, paano siya nakitungo sa First Lady, paano siya nakitungo sa family ng presidente.
Okay.
So yun, mga factors din.
Balikan natin yung dalawang napakahalagang salita na binitiwan mo, Tonton, just a while ago. Number 1, ports. Number 2, First Lady. Number 1, ports. Are we referring to the Philippine Ports Authority? And whose feathers did he ruffle? Was it a government official or was it someone from the private sector?
Well, I've heard that someone from the private sector got offended by that, and I think some people were saying, he was making decisions that without consulting these people who are good, who are very important stakeholders.
And so, who are you referring to exactly? Sino tong very important stakeholder?
Very important yun kasi,
and I'm sure people,
nila yun.
Yeah, so, I'm sure people right now watching are shouting out his name. Sino ba tong very important stakeholder? Kapag ports ang pinag-uusapan, sabihin mo na kasi.
Harder, Pia, but I'm not going to name names.
Okay. But, and then sabi mo, the family, the First Lady. Ano nangyayari between Vic Rodriguez and First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos?
Well, I've heard, I'm not, I don't have personal knowledge about this, but I have read, I've heard there's talk that the two are not seeing eye to eye on many things, on certain things. So that would be an added chismis yun, marites yun, so hindi yun verified. Kayo sa media, baka mas marami kayong alam. so
parang pareho lang yung chismis na nakarating sa
rhetorical, right? But I think, we know that there have been talk, that there have been issues between the two.
Okay. So in other words, no love lost between those two parties. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, before we go on any further, Rex Amicho is here, and what's interesting here is that Rex covered the BBM and Sara Duterte campaign. So you did get a very close-up look. You did get up close and personal with the campaign and with BBM and people around him, and Vic Rodriguez also. He was spokesman at the time. So, ang Malacañang press corps, did you see this coming? Did you know that this was going to happen, or was it just a matter of time? And itong lahat ng mga sinasabi ni Tonton Contreras na chismis na alam naman natin lahat, diba? Nababalitaan nyo na yon, lumilitaw na yon, right?
Well, sa una, hindi naman namin ina-expect, no? Until nga na lumabas yung news about doon sa appointment sa Philippine Ports Authority na apparently may mga utang pa sila sa DOTR yung company niya. And then lumabas yung name niya.
Sino yung na-appoint sa Philippine Ports Authority na medyo was not welcomed by this ang sinasabi ni Ton Contreras, this very important stakeholder when it comes to ports?
Well, honestly, yung exact name niya I cannot recall, pero...
But what does he have to do? Ano yung relationship niya with Rodriguez?
Well, in terms, malapit daw na kaibigan noong asawa ni Attorney Vic Rodriguez. So, pero of course, we cannot conclude no kung it has something to do with doon sa appointment niya and doon sa utang. But what's certain is that doon talaga nagsimula yung mga issues tungkol sa kanya din. Nasundan nga nung sugar mess, and at the same time din yung may mga lumalabas nga na parang nakaaway nga niya si First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos. Pero just imagine, no, kung ako yung nasa company ni President Marcos ever since bago pa siya maging president, kakabahan ako. Kasi, I mean, Attorney Rodriguez has been with BBM through thick and thin nung na-disqualify siya. And then, sa loob lang ng ilang buwan, natanggal siya. At yun nga, mukhang ngayon, walang babalikan dahil sinasabi nga niya, he completely exited the administration.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was embarrassing because there was that announcement, diba? Chief of Staff, and then, as a matter of fact, ang dami nag-react, Chief of Staff, may ES, may PMS ka pa. Ano yung CS na yun, diba? Tapos biglang, doesn't exist according to Lucas Bersamin. So, what's going on?
And yun nga, diba, sabi ni Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce Enrile na hindi na kinakailangan ng Chief of Staff position.
Right.
So talagang, I think, yun na yung parang last na bagay, that's why natanggal siya at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. You know, apart from Vic Rodriguez, let's talk about Trixie Cruz-Angeles. So, araw-araw niyo siyang nakikita halos. She gives almost daily press briefings, humaharap sa inyo, sa Malacañang press corps, and then biglang nag-resign. Although, meron nang mga kwento-kwento, no? Chismis na she might be on her way out already. So what was going on in that department?
Well, lumabas yung mga usap-usapan nga na magre-resign na siya. Meron pang mga kuro-kuro rin na nagsabi na matatanggal siya. Nagsimula doon sa statement niya sa New York na sinabi niya na sa lahat ng nakipag-appoint kay US President Biden siya lang yung inapprove. When in fact, of course, journalists, as we are, hindi naman totoo dahil marami pang ibang leaders sa West na nakipag-meet talaga si President Biden. And then doon na nagsunod-sunod na, ayun nga, yung mga usap-usapan na talagang baka nga matanggal siya or mag-resign siya.
Okay. She was releasing statements that weren't exactly on point, which became a problem. Ganun ba yun?
Yes, that's one. And then may mga kuro-kuro din na lumalabas na ang backer niya raw ay si Executive Secretary Rodriguez, former Executive Secretary, and that's why casualty siya, although unverified to.
Okay. Tonton Contreras still with us via Zoom. Ton, your thoughts on Trixie Cruz-Angeles' exit?
Well, first of all, let me comment on the word resignation. Kasi it's that we have to check the timeline. Kasi please take note that Trixie Cruz-Angeles was bypassed by the Commission on Appointments. So she has to be renominated and given an ad interim appointment. So if she was bypassed, where is she resigning from? Okay?
Okay.
So what happened? Nauna ba yung resignation niya bago inanunsyo ng CA na mababypass siya? Or kung na-bypass na siya, ba't pa siya mag-resign?
Yeah. Or maybe this was this was the graceful exit, di ba? Parang wag na natin confirm kasi hindi naman siya
resignation can be a word that is used when you are asked to leave. You know, it's a graceful exit. That yung mga sinabi kanina nung kasama natin na marami na siyang sunod-sunod na mga hindi on point. Ang sabi mo nga ng mga like for example yung very glaring doon yung kay Joe Biden, yung kanyang sinabi nga that was not accurate. So and that's just one of the many. There are many criticisms against her. In fact, there are people who said that hindi niya na-perform allegedly yung posisyon ng maganda, that she's not being well received by the press. So, and to think that she's the press secretary. These are allegations, but at the same time, patong-patong na. So, siguro, this is a graceful exit. You know, and so, the word resignation must be very used cautiously kasi you cannot, for me, technically, you cannot resign if you are bypassed.
Right.
That means if you are not given an ad interim appointment, that's the end of it.
Or let's just say an exit, graceful or otherwise. We're talking about Trixie Cruz-Angeles and her exit, like we said, graceful or otherwise, from Malacañang as press secretary. And we're going to be moving forward and talking about sino kaya naman ang papalit? Tonton Contreras, political analyst, and Rex Remitio, our Malacañang correspondent, still with us here in Politics as usual. We'll be right back after this very quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as usual. Ang daming ganap sa Marcos administration that isn't even on its 100th day yet. Still with us here in the studio, Rex Remitio, our Malacañang correspondent. He also did cover the BBM Sara Duterte campaign during the last election. And joining us via Zoom is Antonio Tonton Contreras. Rex, you want to say something?
Well, ayun nga, aside sa sinabi ni Professor Contreras, no, yung dahilan niya na health reasons, ever since kasi, yes, wala naman siyang nababanggit about her health na that could lead dun sa dahilan niya. Pero of course, we cannot say in conclusion na it's not true. It's just that yun yung dahilan niya without any further explanation at least.
But you did get along with her, right? The press corps, you know.
Yes.
Why was that there 1 second pause?
I haven't seen any sign na...
Wala naman problema.
Pero of course, I'm not the one to judge her since I'm not a doctor anyway.
Yeah, no, what I meant is you did get along with her. The Malacañang press corps, you know, paano yung pakikitungo?
Well, she's cordial, no? At the same time, although...
Cordial and civil, which is...
yes.
Good enough, yeah.
Yes. Although, syempre, compared daw sa mga previous na press secretaries or presidential spokespersons or head ng PCOO, hindi ganun kadalas yung press briefing. And at the same time, hindi alam kung kailan talaga mangyayari. Although, new Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin just said na he will try na at least weekly magkaroon ng regular press briefing, although he cannot promise.
Okay. We're gonna move on and talk about sino kaya ang papalit or sino ang gusto nilang pumalit kay Trixie Cruz-Angeles. And Ed Tayaw is joining us now via Zoom. Ed, hi. Thank you very much for joining us. I understand you came from another meeting or something, no? But kanina napag-usapan na natin yung exit, graceful or otherwise, ni Vic Rodriguez. And now we're talking about Trixie Cruz-Angeles. And now the question is, sino dapat yung pumalit sa kanya? So ang daming pangalan lumilitaw, Gilbert Remulla, Cesar Chavez, Mike Toledo, Paul Soriano, Direct Paul Soriano, although Paul has already said na he has declined that. So what do you think, Ed?
Mahirap hula. Actually, well, thanks for inviting me. Of course, I couldn't just say no to you. At the end of the day, there has to be a common factor as far as the choices are concerned. And I'm sure, of course, you know already that whether we like it or not, there are some different groups that have been jockeying for different posts, which is not necessarily unique as far as this administration is concerned. But at the end of the day, really, it's a question as to who is really close to the one making the choices. No? And as far as the replacement of former Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles is concerned, I think it's a toss between former presidential spokesperson Mike Toledo and former ABS-CBN correspondent Gilbert Remulla. No?
Okay. Don Contreras, what do you think? Who should it be?
Well, I have my own preference, but it depends. It all depends on the president. Well, I heard that Mike Toledo has an edge because first of all, Gilbert already has a position in government, right? He's assigned somewhere, and then the other name that is being floated around is Chavez, Cesar Chavez. He's also an undersecretary now, so. On that basis alone, I can surmise that I think he's probably going to give it to Mike Toledo.
But I guess,
the most Mike Toledo is also qualified, by the way. So it's not that he's not qualified.
Okay, so, I guess the most important question is...
And his name already came out, right?
Yeah.
Pre-note na siya, di ba ni Montulfo before?
Right.
Last Thursday, to be exact.
Right. Oo. Rex, Remitio, sino papalit kay Trixie?
Well, of course, although I agree with Professor Contreras, mas nakasama ni President Marcos noong campaign si former Cavite Congressman Remulla. Siya yung nag-coordinate doon sa mga parallel groups nila sa iba't ibang probinsya kasi may mga volunteers. So ever since he's there last year pa. So
mas kilala ni BBM si Gilbert.
suppose,
pero ang pinag-uusapan dito is yung expertise, no?
Yes,
Who's going to run OPS?
Yes.
And that's, maraming agencies yan, no? And you're running the whole press machinery of the palace, right?
So we have to watch kung ano yung mas prevail, whether it's the expertise or yung kung gaano kalapit, kung gaano pinagkakatiwalaan ng Pangulo yung isang tao.
Okay. All right. And then also we have the resignation of Jose Calida as Commission on Audit. And the other question here is, will there be more? Is this the last wave of, well, you either call it resignations or exits, or will there be more? What's going on? Is this cleaning? Is there a cleanup that's going on? Who's behind it? And why is this happening? Is this meant to help BBM in the first 100 days of his presidency? Let's get the thoughts of Don Contreras first.
First of all, just very briefly, yung kay Gilbert muna. Ang isang nag-work against Gilbert, by the way, ay meron na isang Remulla sa cabinet. So baka sabihin nila, two Remullas in the cabinet may not sound good. I mean, the optics is not good. But on your question about whether there will be more, of course, you have to understand that in the DICT nga, hindi klaro nangyari doon sa kay Uy, right? Ano ba siya? Siya ba ay hindi na rin sa cabinet? Kasi hindi siya na-renominate. So, hindi siya nabigyan ng wala pa siyang ad interim appointment. So, baka siya yung kasunod. Di ba? Hindi natin alam kasi malabo pa. But this is expected because in the first place, hindi ba natin alam kung lahat sila mag-confirm ng Commission on Appointments, right? So, definitely, yung mga hindi na-confirm, papalitan yan. So, ang importante dito, meron pa bang mawawala o maalis na nag-resign o pinag-resign o kaya ay nagkaroon ng health problem suddenly.
Pwede rin naman
kasi yun ang mga babantayan natin. So,
pwede rin naman
abangan ng susunod na kabanata. This is an interesting season, parang House of the Dragons, mas exciting pa.
I believe Secretary Uy will be reappointed daw. Nasa abroad lang kasi, so hindi nakapag-oath.
Okay. Yung mga exits kasi, di ba, Rex, hindi lang naman secretary level, yung pwedeng USEC or ASEC, no? But anyway, more from our guests. We just need to take this one final break. More from our guests when we return. This is Politics as Usual. You're watching Politics as Usual. We're on our final stretch. President Marcos has so far made 2 inaugural state visits to Indonesia and Singapore. He says the visits lured investment commitments amounting to over $14 billion or more than 800 billion pesos. The president adds that such investments will help in the country's economic recovery efforts and create more jobs for Filipinos. Meantime, in his working visit to the United States, the president tackling before the United Nations General Assembly some issues on climate change, rising food prices, and the upholding of the rule of law in resolving international disputes. Malacañang also saying the president secured nearly $4 billion in investment pledges from that trip. With us in the studio, our Malacañang correspondent, Rex Remedios via Zoom, Professor Renato De Castro joining us now, and political analysts Ton Contreras and Ed Tayao. Professor De Castro, let's begin with you. We have not very much time left, but itong yung foreign policy, you have the Marcos administration making some sort of a pivot back towards the United States after 6 years of Duterte's friendship with China. But of course, the other question here, the twin question is, if that is the case, then why did Sara Duterte come up with that videotaped message for China on its National Day? You know, so what's going on, no, when it comes to foreign policy? You know, what kind of a foreign policy is the Marcos administration hammering out?
Well, I don't think it's a pivot from China to the United States, because the pivot to China actually never happened. You have, of course, announcement by President Duterte in October 2016 when he announced that I'm separating from the United States, China and Russia, here I come. It never happened. For one thing, of course, the military was very suspicious of China. Public opinion, of course, is always suspicious of China. And China actually never reciprocated President Duterte's effort to gravitate closer to it. Chinese investment did not enter the country, and Chinese behavior in the South China Sea remained as assertive as ever, even under President Duterte. So there was actually no pivot to China. And later on, of course, President Duterte around 2021 realized that there's simply no point in appeasing China. So eventually, our policy then started to gravitate back to the United States, even during the time of President Duterte. What basically happened when President Bongbong Marcos announced, those things in the United States? They are already on the works, even during the time of President Duterte. So there's actually no pivot from China to the United States.
So para bang you had Duterte na parang nandiligaw sa Beijing, pero busted, in other words. Dahil walang nangyari.
Well, I think it's more of the balance, effort to balance. Unlike President Duterte, who actually pursued a very unbalanced policy by winning away from the United States and gravitating to China, which ended up as a case of unrequited love. He never got that love from China. So even to the point, I don't know if you remember, when he asked President Xi Jinping, can I start exploring for natural gas in the reed bank? Xi Jinping warned him, you want war? So that's what he got. A case of simply unrequited love from China. So I think the policy now is to pursue what I would call that elusive balance between the United States and, of course, China. You know, it's easy to say that we're balancing, but whether we could achieve that balance is easier said than done.
Elusive balance translated to, as BBM likes to say, a friend to all and an enemy to none.
Yes. Number one, of course, we cannot really pursue independent foreign policy or distance ourselves from the United States because we have an alliance. You know, an alliance is whoever is the opponent of your ally automatically also becomes your opponent. So how can you basically say it's, you know, independent when you have, of course, an alliance? But of course, countries, Japan, Germany, they all have an alliance and they have no problem talking about independent foreign policy. Now, the issue with China is the fact that China wants 85% of our exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea. So how can you balance your relationship with China when you have this, you know, this territorial dispute with China? So again, this is what I say, this is, of course, the golden grail of Philippine foreign policy, to find the right balance between a country that is bent on expanding into your territorial domain and, of course, your traditional long-term treaty ally, which is, of course, the United States.
And early on, Marcos saying that we're not going to give an inch of Philippine territory to China. You know, I wish we had more time.
And, of course, his statement that we don't have any territorial dispute with China, which is actually a very strong statement.
Right.
Because it doesn't recognize that there's a territorial dispute. And, of course, this is a subtle reaffirmation of the July 12, 2016 arbitral ruling, which, of course, nullified China's 9-dash claim. So, actually, we don't have territorial dispute with China on the basis of the arbitral ruling.
All right. I wish we had more time, pero, and, you know, we don't have much time, and neither do we have any more minutes. It's already 8:29. We are way over time. So a final word sana, no? Pero ubus na talagang oras. But I want to say thank you very much to our guests tonight, Professor Renato de Castro, political analysts Tonton Contreras and Ed Tayao. Thank you very much for being with us tonight via Zoom, and our own Malacañang correspondent, Rex Remigio. Thank you, Rex. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in group chats, and risk warfare, digital and otherwise. But we can talk about it here at this table on the show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you back here next Wednesday, 8 p.m.